The Black Lives Matter movement released specific policy proposals, so let's take a look at them and see what we think here. So first of all, they say we should end broken window-style policing. For those of you who don't know, to sum that up, it basically means the police should overreact when there's petty crimes committed to send a message that, oh, we're here to stay and we're like an invading army and, you know, we're going to clean up the streets by being super, super tough on you. Now, of course, that's a ridiculous approach to policing, in my opinion, because the reality is what you're doing is you're setting up a dynamic within the community where it's standoffish. So you have the population hating the cops and the cops hating the population, and you just exacerbated the problems. And, oh yeah, we have many, many laws on the books that shouldn't be there in the first place. So when you're cracking down to uphold unjust laws, you're the bad guy. You're cracking down because, oh my God, some 18-year-old smoked a joint. Who gives a shit? The problem in that situation is you, not them. All right, so they say end that. I totally agree. Next one. Have community oversight. Now that's interesting, and they explain that what they're referring to is civilian oversight of cops. So I don't know all the details of how they'd set that up. You know, you might have some kind of a board, and you have people rotate and overseeing what the cops are doing. I like the idea in principle. I just have to see the specifics as to how they want to work that out. But by and large, I'd say, yeah, I'm with that. Number 3 is limit use of force. And what they mean by that is change the standard for when cops can use violence. So there are some laws, old laws on the books, and I believe a Supreme Court case or two weighed in on this as well, where they basically said they lowered the standard. It's not like if the cops' life is in imminent threat of danger that then they can use violence. They can use it before that line. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, what the fuck? I thought that was already the case, that their life has to be in imminent threat of danger. It turns out that's not true. And the argument from the Black Lives Matter movement is, well, let's go to that standard because that standard makes more sense. Again, 100% on their side. We're 3 for 3. Let's go to the fourth one. Independent investigations and prosecutions. Okay, this one is the easiest no-brainer ever. All they're saying is, hey, if a police officer commits a crime, let's make it so that it's not the police officer's buddy who's responsible for then bringing that police officer up on charges. Because what's going to happen? They're not going to do it, or they're going to throw the case on purpose. Like the whole indictment situation with Darren Wilson. They threw the case. They didn't even get a fucking indictment. I mean, think about that. The old saying is that you can indict a ham sandwich, because all you have to do in an indictment hearing is just bring up the facts for your side of the case. You don't have to give the defense, but they gave the defense in that case. Why did they give the defense? Because they wanted to throw it out. So they're saying, no more of this nonsense, man. I mean, this is an embarrassment. And so, since the cops are connected, they get off. That's the bottom line. And what they're saying is, we have to change that here. If a cop commits a crime, you need special investigators, special prosecutors, preferably from the federal government who don't know the assholes who committed the crimes, so they can be objective. The other position, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not even considering the opposite position because it's demonstrably ridiculous. Okay, next one. So they're 4 for 4 so far. Next one is community representation. That basically means community policing. We've spoken about that before. The idea behind that is you should have people from a given community become officers for that community. So they're less likely to put Mrs. Johnson in a chokehold because they know Miss Johnson. Again, makes perfect sense. They're, 5 for 5 now. Number 6, cameras on all cops. Multiple studies have shown that that greatly reduces police abuse and police brutality. Now, of course, there's going to be cases like with Eric Garner, for example, where we have the crime on tape and still we don't get the right outcome. So it's not foolproof. But the studies show that cops are less likely to even engage in that kind of action when they know that they're being recorded. They're 6 for 6. Number 7. They want new training for police. Again, 100% correct. We covered the story yesterday. Police only spend about 8 hours learning how to de-escalate problems and 10 hours learning about proper communication tactics, where they spend, close to 50 hours on firearms training and defensive tactics. So they're trained to go to physical force very quickly. They're not trained to de-escalate. They're not trained, first and foremost, to protect and serve the people. They're to view you immediately as the enemy. So we need to change that. They're 100% right there as well. What are we now? 7 for 7. Number 8, they have end for-profit policing. Again, I don't see a counter-argument to that. When you have for-profit policing, you have a fucked-up incentive. The incentive then becomes, hey, let's do more policing, let's lock more people up, because we make more money when we do that. This is for profit. That's a terrible incentive to have set up. That's ridiculous to have that set up. 8 for 8. Number 9, demilitarize the cops. Again, I don't see how anybody can disagree with that. We've seen the results of militarizing the cops. They're all using gear that was made for war zones, guys. That's not what police are supposed to be. People in Europe look at us on this and they're like, what the fuck are you doing? You have an invading army there. Now, I'm not somebody who goes all the way to say cops can never, under any circumstance, have guns. I do think they can have guns, but as I've proposed before, they should be trained where the first thing they resort to is incapacitating rounds. So the first thing you use is pepper spray, or the first thing you use is a taser, and the gun is the absolute last resort. And the only time you can actually bring a gun with you and have a gun on you is if you're showing up to a scene where there's already some sort of firefight going on and guns are already involved. But outside of that, the gun should stay in the car. So, and that's something that's somewhat controversial. Some people disagree with me on that, but I think that's the middle road between what they do in many European places where the cops are just not armed, and what we do here, which is everybody's armed to the fucking teeth. All the cops are armed to the fucking teeth. So I like the middle ground on that one. But overall, demilitarize the cops? Yes. We see the vehicles they have. It's insane. We see the way they're decked out. It looks like they're going into a war zone because that's what the gear is for. Yes, demilitarize them. The next one, they say fair union contracts. Again, I agree with that. Now, we'd have to get into the specifics on that one too, because, I mean, you got to be careful, because I still want cops to be paid very well. In fact, I might even want to pay the cops more. But the thing is, should a cop be cracked down on properly, like lose your job or get charges brought up against them when they do something wrong? Yes. So this idea of, like, if a cop does something wrong, there should be no backlash and no punishment. Yeah, you need to get whatever kind of provisions may exist within union contracts to protect them in that way. We do need to get rid of those. And that's it. That's the 10th one. And I would say I'm 10 for 10 here. Or you could say 9.5 out of 10, because I think one of them, there's one here I described where it matters how we would go about doing it, the civilian oversight of cops. You'd need more details on that one. But basically 10 out of 10. Now, the only thing that I would add to this, and I think this is really, really important, and I hope that somebody listening is associated in one way or another with top-ranking officials in the Black Lives Matter movement. I already tweeted this at D. Ray McKesson earlier. You have to add on the list, somehow, somewhere, end the drug war. And also, look, you don't need to go the full SecularTalk. You don't need to go the full Kyle Kulinski and advocate for legalize everything. That is what I believe is right, and I can give you an argument for that, and I think it's a convincing argument. But if you want to make this more mainstream and get more people behind you for it, then just advocate for decriminalizing all drugs. That's different than legalizing. Legalizing is you can go to CVS and, get some OxyContin if you so please. That's what I'm in favor of. But decriminalization just means we're not going to lock you up in a cage and throw away the key if you're caught with some joints or something. So I would definitely add that. They don't have that yet, but perhaps they'll add that in the future. But overall, here's the bottom line, man. When you hear some crazy right-wingers or some idiots talk about how, they're just angry youths who need to get a job and stop being lazy. When you hear those kinds of arguments against the Black Lives Matter people, you know that is factually incorrect, because they're arguing for specific things and specific intelligent things at that. So we're talking about a substantive movement here. Let's remember that.